How are we demanding more, yet we see all our institutions are bedeviled with corruption? And corruption is not just a thing at the top. It means that also somewhere at the bottom, for this, if judges have been bribed, if at all that had happened, there's somebody bribing them.
Because these stories are finally coming out. They're finally coming out, and the Kenyan public is responding to it. They're saying they're not going to take it.
Okay.
Michael.
Gadara, do you agree that corruption, first of all, is cultural? And when it becomes cultural, does that almost excuse the vice?
It is not cultural. And a corollary of actually assuming it is cultural is what you've just said. It excuses those people who are actually responsible for it. Go to the statistics. In 2014, we had the East African Bribery Index. But read what it says about corruption. Less than a quarter of incidences of corruption involve people paying for, somebody to get something they don't deserve. I.e., I want a job, I pay somebody, I get it. Less than a quarter. Most of it, the vast majority, is government officials utilizing their power to extort from the public. You want a license that you're entitled to, pay me. You want a judgment, pay me. It is government extorting from the society. And then what, let me finish. Then what happens is the government tells us that we are to blame for what it is doing. And then we sit back and we say, well, actually, it's us who are bad.
Michael,
this is the thing. Same thing with the private sector. The vast majority of private sector companies don't pay bribes. As in, they don't go to government and pay bribes. It's actually mostly those that operate with government. And it is always, in fact, well, let me say, not say always, but it's mostly a function of government officials abusing their power. You spoke of Rwanda. What changed in Rwanda? Was it culture?
Okay.
Come on. Rwanda was changed because, let me finish. Rwanda was changed because the government changed, because governance changed. Same thing with Singapore. You don't fight corruption by fighting culture. You fight it by changing the governance.
I disagree with Gadara, but I think I want to take the story forward. To me, the bigger story that is supposed to be pursued by the media, Michael, is actually institutional corruption. The previous week, I think we were looking at what is happening at the Supreme Court. Yesterday, the Standard ran a headline story that was talking about allegations of corruption as far as the National Police Service Commission is concerned, which is not a new thing. We need actually to look at the entire thing in its totality. What does it say of our institutions that were trusted under the Constitution and with a lot of hope came into power and were constituted to give hope to Kenyans? It is a circus when you look at the theatrics that are going on in this kind of institution. Going back to the banner headlines of this, the banner headline of the Standard yesterday, I looked through. I agree, it was given fair coverage. But what really I was expecting, and what I have some bit of misgivings about, is what actually made it to be a banner headline. Because looking at the basis under which the story was written, I thought, because it was talking of a certain letter that has been written by some gruntled police officers who were being vetted, it is not a new thing. What are we saying? Today, I actually expected to see the story still on the front page. And these are the things that we are talking about. It actually comes down to what we call briefing and debriefing, which is very important. I wish Clay was here to tell us exactly whether that still happens in the newsroom.
All right, Mwenda Kilemi, in terms of following up on stories and whether, for instance, now the headline story yesterday on the Standard, and that is the National Police Service Commission, bribery allegations, and some officers having received 500, 300,000, and then suddenly the story has gone.
As he said, I think the issue is to look forward and see what's happening. These stories of National Police Commission, it always comes out. Every few months when they're having this issue, somebody always claims there's some bribing going on. And that affects all institutions, as they're saying. But I take a very optimistic view. I think things are getting better. I don't think they're getting worse. I think if you look at the country over the last 6 months, our expectations of what corruption is and what we're supposed to do about corruption has completely changed. The discussion is, are we doing enough? Not are we doing anything? And that's something we should all take in mind and keep in mind as we move forward. What are the processes that are going on to fight corruption?
Okay, have we highlighted those so that the constituents feel that something is being done, or are we busy highlighting the corruption index that we have and painting a very negative picture?
I think, unfortunately, in the news world, if it bleeds, it leads. So if it's not as positive, it's not more likely to get as positive coverage as something negative. We have done a lot in the last few months. As I said, when you talked about this a couple of weeks ago, this president has seen over 300 senior officials taken to court. Now the discussion we're having is, are they going to be prosecuted? Every 2 weeks we don't pass before another senior official is being taken to that same court. Now the question, are they going to get prosecuted? That's a move forward from just 6 months ago when we said these people were not even going to court. Nothing was happening to them.
Okay. Gadara, assuming that what he's saying is true, is it an agenda that has been created by the Fourth Estate to a point where something is actually being done in terms of corruption?
I think that there is stuff being done on corruption. We can't take that away from government, but I think the vast majority of what needs to be done isn't. I think when the president stood up and said that his office is a den of corruption, we should have asked then what's he doing about his own office. When his cabinet ministers, 5 of them are mentioned and are fired, and then there's still others being embroiled. We should be asking, where is this broom to sweep them? So it's not just it shouldn't be fought piecemeal, if you will. I think we need to look at strengthening agencies, and this again is another place where government, I think, is at fault. We have seen time and time again the undermining of independent offices. Whether it is what the Auditor General says, or the other day the reports that the controller of budget was being summoned or being read the Riot Act, etc. These are things that that undermine the ability of those offices, to curtail what guys in the executive can do, And this is a problem. I think, again, when we look at places like in the judiciary, we need to be, I'm quite surprised that it took the revelations in the press for this thing to really bubble up. If they knew about it in November, where were they sitting on it, till then? And if you think about where we are going, we're headed towards an election in a year's time or so, or a year and a half. If we have a Supreme Court that's essentially been whose credibility has been rubbished, and an EACC, an IEBC whose credibility has been rubbished, what sort of election do we expect? Who will believe it? And what happens when we have a dispute in that election?
Okay.
All right. So, well, just one final thing. I just mentioned the IBC. The IBC is a very good example of where we do nothing. People who paid people in IBC bribes are in jail in the UK. The people who took bribes are still in public office today.
Still working.
Something to add is that in the fight of corruption, you've completely ignored local government. There's a lot of corruption going on in local government from county onwards down. We need to concentrate on those areas because a lot of money is being lost there. If we gave it the kind of attention we're giving national government, I think a lot of counties would be working much better than they are working right now.
Do you note how we keep mentioning government? It's not culture. It's always government.
We can debate about that over and over again. But the fact of the matter, I would want to disagree with Gadara as far as the IBC and probably breaking down any other institution is concerned. Because looking at the allegations on the IBC and looking at the allegations on the Supreme Court, I think the panacea is not to get a new team, as has been suggested in some quarters. This is why I'm saying it is a cultural thing. Believe you me, Mike, everyone in this country has got questions. It only depends with how we perceive certain things. Today, we might say that we want a new IEBC, but tomorrow, the more things change, the more they remain the same. This is why we need to fix our culture. And having said that, Michael, I spoke of briefing and debriefing, which is very important. I'll give you an example. Today, for instance, a reporter has been sent to cover an opinion poll result being released by a certain pollster. And the story that many of us expected from that particular function is obvious, that probably if elections were held today, Uhuru Kenyatta will beat Raila Odinga by a certain margin. What am I trying to say? I'm saying that it is important for reporters to be socialized and be briefed enough whenever they are headed out to functions, because it is only by so doing that they get to understand a particular story. Because looking at the example that I've given, the story probably is about the fact that if elections are held today, none of the presidential candidates would garner the requisite amount of votes, which is the 50 plus 1 50 plus 1 vote, 50% plus 1, sorry. Meaning that elections will actually spill over to a runoff. What am I trying to say? I'm saying that by briefing reporters, you get a sense and you understand how to take a story
Who is to
forward.
do that brief?
Of course, editors.
Okay.
Yeah, but to play the devil's advocate to his
Okay.
comment, the reporters report on what people want to know.
It is not about reporters reporting what people want to know. It is
That's
the
their
editor
job.
to make
No,
sense
that's
of
their
the
job.
story.
Their job is to sell the news. And that's what people care about. They will sell that news.
And you see, he actually reminds me of another factor that I wanted to bring out. We can sit here today and make a lot of noise regarding how the media is supposed to cover corruption. But in journalism, we have a saying that goes, you do not kill the goose that lays the golden egg. The fact is, counties, the fact is, government, the fact is, those parastatals that we are talking about contribute a lot of revenue to the running of media houses.
Okay.
How do you
Gadara,
again turn around and hit back?